What's up, guys? I'm back at it again with another video, a bunch of stories that I found. So, as always, pull up a stump with me, and if you're feeling particularly spicy, then you can like the video, subscribe, and comment. And if you're feeling extra spicy, you can donate to the Patreon, and you can take advantage. I don't know if you take advantage, but you can listen to the me ramble on for 20 minutes on Fridays. But yeah, let's jump into the videos. Thanks for watching. Back when I was 16, I was really into urban exploration, and I had this friend who I thought was really cute who I would take with me. So we find this really small, two-story house that's really dilapidated looking. It's this really run-down house. There's boarded up windows, boarded up doors, and everything like that. But when we're searching around, we find a window that leads into the basement that's kind of small, but we're both thin-framed enough to be able to slide in. Once we're inside, we figure that the basement must be quite a bit bigger than the first floor is. There's some kind of cot in the corner, there's what looks to be porn mags, and there's canned food and all that stuff down there. My friend says, "Should we leave? I don't really want to get knifed today." The cot is covered in dust. In fact, everything is covered in dust, so I say, "No, I think we're good." So I initiate my flashlight, and we started exploring the basement. The basement's really creepy, but otherwise it's empty. It just smells really rancid. There's like a literal bucket of shit that's just sitting on the floor. There's like flies and mold everywhere, and it's disgusting. I almost vomit. So we go upstairs and into the house. Inside of the house isn't dusty, but it's really dark. We explore all 700 square feet or whatever it is. The living room and kitchen combo, and there's a bathroom, but that's it. The bathroom is locked really tightly. And I think, whatever, it could be anything, we'll just keep exploring. And I noticed that the living room looks actually kind of nice for an abandoned house. It's kind of creepy, to be honest, and I start to feel like someone's watching us. So we go upstairs, and my friend says again, "Can we go, please?" I'd say, "I want to see the rest of the place, then we can leave, promise." So we go upstairs, and there's 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, and there's just weird kind of rotten smell throughout the whole floor. So I open the first bedroom door, and it's completely empty. The second bedroom is also empty, but has big stains on the carpet and ripped up wallpaper. We open the bathroom door together, and there's this olfactory sensory overload. There's dead skinned squirrels, and there's cats all over the counter, small skinned dog in the toilet, dried blood all over the floor. There's a bundle of cloth in the bathtub. Morbid curiosity takes over. There's 4 red spots in the cloth, about 2 inches wide each. My hand is shaking as I reach for the end of the cloth. My friend says again, "Can we please go?" I move the cloth. There's a dead blonde girl with smeared makeup, and her eyes are wide open, but her mouth is gagged. Friend screams, I scream. We run down the hallway and notice that the bedroom door is closed. And I yell, "I didn't close any of these doors." Run down the stairs, and my friend is still screaming. Previously locked bathroom door is open, and there's knives and a whole bunch of stuff in there, and a chair facing the door. Another bolt of cloth is in that bathtub too. The bathroom door that we were just in slams shut. My friend screams louder and heads straight for the basement to leave. I hear her leave, but I'm frozen with fear. I can't move. The house is now completely silent. I hear a door upstairs creaking. My fear paralysis is gone, so I just end up running straight to the basement and climb out the tiny window. My friend is there, crying and shaking. We're just outside the window. Suddenly, we hear bam, bam, bam. I jump, she jumps, and we scream. The window that I had just climbed out is being boarded up. And I'm thinking, oh shit. So we run back to her car in the driveway, and there's a folded up note under the wiper. I grab it on the way to the passenger seat, and we start driving home, speeding. I open the note. "We've seen your faces. Call the police and we come for you." I scream. She sees the note, pulls over and breaks down crying. We never told anyone this story before. And again, I'm not making this up. Stay the hell out of San Antonio. Seriously. So this one time, I was waiting for a lunar eclipse because I had never seen one before, and the night is really quiet, and no one really gave a damn about the eclipse around my area, so I went outside and sat on the roof to watch it better. I start to hear, like, these drums or something in the distance. It's a little odd, but I'm just here for the eclipse. So I watch as the lunar eclipse becomes complete, and I notice that the intensity of the drums is matching the consumption of the eclipse, and then the drums stop. But I watch a little longer, and then I see something in the sky, flying and getting closer, and there are two of them. They are fast and fly over me, so I took a glimpse at them. They were these gigantic white birds with no beak. Each one were really enormous, like 2 meters per wing. They got lost over in the distance and went down into a nearby forest. I stay paralyzed on the roof, and I look for anyone who could have seen them too, and I notice that there's not one soul in the streets. I don't quite remember how long this was into my driving career, so let's just say it was about 6 months. I got a new partner, and it was some foreign dude who lived in Las Vegas. The only partner that wasn't a huge weirdo and was actually really funny and super chill, so driving with him was a big blast all the time. And we're out in Wyoming, and it was cold as hell, and it wasn't even winter yet. And I recall that during my training time, my training partner was some old guy named Russ, and he lived in Wyoming, and all he would talk about was how many accidents there were on the highways all the time. So I had this idea that Wyoming was some dangerous mountain of twisting roads to navigate. So we leave Salt Lake City, Utah on a delivery to Philadelphia. I take the I-80, which cuts straight through the entire state. When I enter the state, I'm kind of confused. It's literally the straightest roads out of any state I've driven in, and I think, oh, well, this will just be a piece of cake then. But around 200 miles into Wyoming, I get an alert on my Qualcomm, which is like this little touchscreen computer that's like a GPS and is a messaging system between myself and the dispatch. It says, "Wind, danger, seek immediate shelter," and I think, huh? What the hell does that mean? Wind danger? There's no storms in the sky. It's clear. And then the wind hits me. Wham! It feels like someone just struck me on the passenger side. My trailer fishtails, and I begin to see the tandems, which are the back tires of the trailer, lift off the ground, and I freak the hell out, and I try to counter steer while braking, but not braking too hard or else I'll lose control of the truck. So I managed to actually come to a full stop, and I pull off the side of the road and put my flashers on. I get out to set reflectors on the road, but at this point everyone else is pulling over and the wind is crazy. I get out and immediately get knocked on my ass by the wind, and I start kind of rolling. Like some shit you'd see in like a Looney Tunes cartoon or something. It was crazy. So I realized that putting out reflectors out here would be useless. They just blow away. The wind is like ice against my skin, and I mean it actually is painful. It's so cold. So I grin and bear it and make it back to my truck. The entire interstate is shut down at this point. Everyone's pulled off the side of the road, and no one's going anywhere until the wind dies down. Eventually, I get bored of listening to Coast AM radio talk about COVID, and I decide to turn on the CB. This was my partner's truck, so he had a CB installed. Usually, he left it off because it was just old people wheezing about young people doing dumb stuff. But we listen to them talk a bit, and we hop in and start bullshitting with the other dudes, banter, laugh, etc. This weird thick fog rolls in at some point, and I mean really thick. You can't see anything. You can't even see the trailer behind me in my own rearview mirror. It's bizarre to have all this fog with the amount of wind. In fact, in my opinion, it shouldn't have been possible. But some time passes and someone hops on the CB and they sound really pissed. He yells, "Any one of you assholes who are screwing with me better quit, or I'm going to shoot your diabetic asses." And other people tune in and ask him just what the hell he's on about. He says some punk thought it'd be funny to either knock on my truck or throw something at it. I initially laugh about it, thinking that he's just playing a joke, and think, oh, the things these guys will do when they're bored. But then someone else pipes up and says it happened to them as well. And then another, and another. I start to get a little spooked, but whatever, it's just some guy probably having a bit of fun trying to scare people by banging on their truck or whatever. But we start to notice a pattern. It's going down the interstate heading west. And the guy in front of me, by the sounds of his accent, he was probably African or something like that. He said that someone just pounded on his door that woke up his partner. I sit in my seat, just wide-eyed. I turn on my high beams, and I can't see anything. There's nothing in front of me. I just don't see anything. So I stand up so I can get like a better look kind of over the hood of the truck. And the moment I do, bam, 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 loud as hell. I trip over the CB cord and almost piss myself. I get up and I'm about to go outside and see just what it was when I come to my senses and say, screw that, I'm not leaving the truck. So I make sure the doors are locked, I set an alarm for sunrise, and I climb up on the top bunk to try and get some sleep. I sit there staring at the roof while listening to the wind howl outside. It almost sounds like that there's someone screaming out there, so I get no sleep. I'm not that good at stories, so you'll have to bear with me. Keep in mind that my grandfather died in the early 2000s at the ripe old age of 115, and that's just what's recorded. I'm pretty sure he could have been older than that, since third world record keeping isn't exactly accurate. So when my grandfather was in his early 20s, he lived in this valley, and the main kind of income that was there was farming or mining. It's completely rural and everybody is completely dirt poor. To put into perspective how backwards the village was, we did not get plumbing or power until the late 70s. And you might be thinking by now that this is in rural Mexico, but it's not. It's actually further down. We are closer to Antarctica than to the US, actually. Anyways, as aforementioned, you either farm for most of the year or you work in the mines. And I mean work like in the Middle Ages with pretty much the same tools, pickaxes and all the likes. Completely manual labor. One day in the late evening, he's going out of whatever was a 14-hour shift or something like that at the time. Have to get on that daily grind, as they say. The other workers are already leaving and preparing to do the roughly 7-kilometer walk back down the mountain. And I did this walk myself later on, and it absolutely destroyed me. I have no idea how he or people like him did it every night back then while carrying their stuff. So he's the last one out of his group, out of the mine, and he's trying to catch up to them because doing that walk all by yourself is really boring, even more so after a long hard day of work and carrying your stuff around all the time. Anyways, his group up ahead of him is just a couple of curves down the road, and Gramps said he could hear them talking but he couldn't see them, so he's trying to walk faster, and suddenly he hears someone calling for him, and it sounds like that it's just on the side of the road outside the tunnel, but kinda in behind the trees almost. And as you can imagine, in a very rural area like this, everybody has like a very rural specific accent, but not this. He just doesn't have one. My grandfather said that the man's voice sounded clear, educated, like a fine voice, kinda like one you'd hear on the radio with no accent. So my grandfather pays attention to him, and out comes a finely dressed man. He also mentions the faint smell out of the ordinary. The man keeps calling my grandpa over. He takes a few steps closer. This guy is well groomed, no facial hair, and he's dressed as like an aristocrat almost. This guy tells my grandfather that he will make him rich if he just comes with him. Behind him are bars of gold. And it's probably good to mention that the mine was used for copper and gold. However, those minerals weren't processed there. They were just extracted and sent off to somewhere else. These were supposedly the typical bars of gold you'd see in the media, like when someone's rich or in a comic from back then. So obviously my grandfather notices that something is off about this man. For starters, what is someone like this doing out in the middle of bumfrig nowhere? And not only that, the most rural part of the country at the end of a mine shaft. Like, what is going on here? He said the man started walking closer to him and began to almost shapeshift. He could smell it often, but his breath reeked like cow farts, or whatever the translation would be. His legs were all twisted looking, and the skin on his face looked dried out like leather. His clothes started to turn into feathers, and this guy is getting closer to my grandfather. My grandfather begins to run as fast as he can. The guys that were ahead are nowhere to be found at this point. He runs all the way back to the village and eventually catches up with another group of workers that initially were leaving after him because they were now pretty close to the village. No one noticed in the road anything strange, but later in the night, the guys that were ahead told him no one noticed anything weird again, so he's pretty scared, scared out of his mind at this point, and he has to go to work the next day. On the way down this time with his buddies, he decides to go look at the spot where the strange guy was, and all that's there is just this dead bird in the spot the man was, and behind him, where the pile of gold was, is just a pile of dung in the place of the gold. He had many other encounters with the supernatural and stuff, but he told me that this was the first time that he faced the temptation of the devil. And obviously I probably botched the storytelling, but that's roughly what happened. So I'm hanging out with a friend one time and I decided to do some ghost hunting. We end up driving to the closest historical town and we do our normal walk down the street. And we spot some cool shops in what was once a cotton mill, so we decided to go inside. So we go do some shopping and screw around before getting into the actual supposedly haunted areas. We go upstairs and go to the third floor of this cotton mill. We notice that the hall to the third floor shops is actually open because usually they're all closed. So we walk down the hallway and turn the corner, and there's this dark room with a shop that's closed, and we look at each other and agree that there's something weird going on. So we go inside and we just set stuff down. We do our little investigation and we seem to have found a presence, and then we leave some candy as a sort of offering for being polite, and then we just leave the cotton mill. And we cross the street and my friend realizes that she doesn't have her wallet. And I think, oh god, seriously? Because we're actually halfway to the car. So we end up returning to the crosswalk. I decided to wait outside because I'm just lazy, and I let her go in and look for her wallet. So I wait for a good, maybe 10 minutes or so, and I text her to make sure that she's alright or didn't fall upstairs or something like that. And she replies yes, and then adds that something had happened. 3 minutes later, she pops up and crosses the street and comes back to me. We start walking back to the car again, and I ask her what happened. And she starts telling me that she was searching around and she was going shop to shop and floor to floor looking for her wallet and couldn't find it. And then when she returned to the third floor and went down the hallway that we went down, since that was the last place that we had actually been before we were coming back. So she goes into the room and she finds her wallet, but her wallet is standing up on end, in the triangle formation using the flaps. She's horrified and explains that that's not possible because it was last in her pocket and she never took it out. Both of us agreed that that's absolutely terrifying, but are thankful that she found it. We question our sanity for a full week afterwards before coming to terms with the fact that there's no way to logically explain what happened. This happened back in 1988 when I was 8 years old, so I'm Mexican American, but at this point I was spending a summer in Mexico. My dad warned me since childhood that it's dangerous to be out in the fields or in graveyards alone, especially at night. I ended up growing a childhood fear of magic being real and alive in Mexico and other places. Out in the countryside in Mexico, it's dark out and there's no electricity, there's only oil lamps, and at the time I didn't know how to work one, so I'm just hanging out on the front porch, sitting in the moonlight. I hear the bugs and they're being kinda loud, to be honest, louder than usual actually. Then I hear footsteps, more than one person, and they're very close. There's no way I couldn't hear them sooner when they were farther. I start looking around, I'm kinda starting to panic. There's no voices, no banter, just shuffling. It gets louder. It sounds like a mob of people. I get up and run inside. I trip a few times and psyching myself out thinking I was suddenly in a horror movie and that every stumble meant I was going to die right there. I close and lock the door. I grab a fireplace poker that was next to the doorway and I run into my room. I close the door, but there's no lock. The window is facing the moon. The room is pretty well lit, so my eyes are already adjusted to it. So I'm standing there facing the door for a long time with the poker over my shoulder like a baseball bat, but I hear nothing. Eventually I start to kind of feel a little bit at ease, so I walk over to my bed and about to let myself fall into it. I look out the window at the last moment, and there is a lady draped in a headscarf peering in. I land on the bed and I feel super vulnerable and I jolt, which makes me drop the poker. She remained staring at me. She started showing her teeth, not smiling, just gritting her teeth at me. And I think, what the hell? A guy with a beard comes from the other side, whispering to her. Notices her staring in the window, so he turns to the window and sees me and he starts baring his teeth too. And I just think, what the shit is wrong with these people? But I'm too scared to shout out. Everyone else in the house is still asleep. He lifts up his hand and starts pressing and inspecting the window, lightly banging on it. It looks like he's trying to open it. I don't know what to do. I'm holding my breath, just sitting there, pretty much just waiting for them to open or break the window. These people are going to get in and drag me by my ankles all the way to hell. But I remember the fireplace poker that I had, and I think, screw common sense, I pick it up and run to the window. I smash the poker into the pane closest to the guy. I close my eyes reflexively from the glass and noise. I open them. Both people are now gone. Not a sound other than the wind getting in and crickets being loud. Lights turn on in the house. Dad and Uncle come running into my room, asking why the door is closed. Ask what have I been doing. They see the window, and my dad flips out, starts shouting at me, asking me what the hell I was thinking. I tell him in English that there were people outside staring at me. His eyes go wide and he shuts up. But my uncle's confused. He doesn't speak English. My dad grabs him by the elbow and shouts at the uncle to gather everybody in the kitchen. Dad mutters something really quick, and my uncle shouts everyone to wake up, get up, hurry up, etc., etc. Out of the 10 family members, 6 end up in the kitchen. The other 4, Dad, Uncle, and 2 older cousins, go out with a hunting rifle and an old service revolver and a couple shovels. They are gone for about 10 minutes, which is a super long time when trying to tell Mom and other females what happened. There's obviously the gossip occurs, and there's like my aunt, who's kind of a shit disturber who likes to rile us up, tells us kids that it was the Lorna and her husband. The Lorna is no joke. Me and my younger cousin are legit scared to death at this point. Mom and my other aunt tell her off and say that she's going overboard. The guys return back and they can't find anything. They say that they'll look again in the morning, but nothing was stolen, no cars or tools or chickens or anything. We all decide to stay up because at this point, screw sleeping. There's coffee and breads passed around and ideas are exchanged about what that thing may have been. Thieves come up, spirits come up, and again, La Lorna comes up. Skinwalkers even come up. Eventually, the sun starts to come up too. The whole family goes out and checks everything. There's blood outside my window, but my uncle missed it. My mom audibly worries, but we go on with the day. Nothing else happens as we stay for a few more nights. My uncle and cousin and dad are all alternate guard duty around the property, except the last night that I was there. Newspaper brought from the nearest big town warns that country folk about marauding bands of hyper-poor people. They break into barns and farmhouses, they kill the owners and take as much stuff as they can, and then they leave back to somewhere in the hills. 12 people from a couple farmhouses are dead already. There's only a native farmhand who killed an intruder and drove himself to his town, lived long enough to say what happened. Unfortunately, the shitty doctors there couldn't even keep him alive. Apparently that was my dad's first and only guess as to who those people were. I asked him about it years later, and asked what he told my uncle that night, and he said he saw Gitanos, and my uncle instantly knew what to do. I had to look up what they were in English, and they're called gypsies. So, what did you think of all those stories? Did you like them? Do you think they're real? Do you think they're fake? Do you have any of your own? If you do, you can email me at the email in the description. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.